The bright lights of the airport pressed in on Michael. He dragged his small bag behind him, his shoulders aching from the long flight. His layover stretched out for hours, a blank space of time in the middle of his journey. He just wanted to find a quiet corner, maybe a coffee, and close his eyes for a bit. The terminal was a whirl of people, a symphony of rolling luggage and hushed conversations. Michael sighed, feeling a familiar wave of travel weariness wash over him. As he scanned the departure boards, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Across the wide expanse of the terminal, near a gate for a flight to somewhere sunny, stood a man. He wasn't doing anything special, just looking around, much like Michael himself. But something about him was different. Maybe it was the way the light caught his dark hair or the easy confidence in his posture. Michael found his gaze drawn to him, a curious tug in his chest. And then the man looked up. His eyes, a shade Michael couldn't quite make out from this distance, met Michael's. It was only for a moment, a brief, silent connection across the bustling space. No smile, no nod, just a shared glance that lasted a heartbeat too long. Michael felt a strange warmth spread through him, chasing away a bit of the tiredness. He quickly looked away, a little embarrassed, but a small smile touched his lips. He walked a few more steps, pretending to be very interested in a display of duty-free perfume, but he couldn't help but steal another look. The man was still there, and this time he was looking back. Their eyes locked again, a silent conversation unfolding between them amidst the airport's chaos. Michael felt a little flutter, a spark of something new in the dull routine of travel. This wasn't just another layover anymore. The man across the terminal was no longer just a passing face in the crowd. He was Adrian, Michael now knew from a hushed announcement for a delayed flight. Adrian. The name sounded like a secret, like a soft whisper. Michael found himself drawn to Adrian in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just simple attraction, it was a blend of sharp curiosity and a strange, humming unease. He couldn't quite place the feeling, but it made his skin prickle. Every few minutes, Michael's eyes would drift back to Adrian, and almost every time, Adrian would be looking back. It was like an invisible thread connected them, pulling their gazes together. Michael tried to pretend he was checking the time or admiring an advertisement, but he knew Adrian knew. There was a subtle intensity in Adrian's stare, not threatening, but certainly not casual either. It was a look that seemed to ask a question Michael didn't know how to answer. A tiny knot began to form in Michael's stomach. This wasn't how airport layovers usually went. Usually, he'd bury his nose in a book or scroll mindlessly through his phone. But now, all his attention was focused on the stranger across the hall. He wondered what Adrian was thinking, what he was like. Was he feeling this strange pull too, or was Michael just imagining things, building a whole story in his head out of a few exchanged glances? The unease grew, a thrilling kind of worry. It was the feeling you get when you're about to do something you know you shouldn't, but can't resist. Michael's heart thumped a little faster each time their eyes met. He felt exposed, yet strangely excited. The airport, with all its noise and rush, seemed to fade into the background, leaving only Michael and Adrian and the silent language they were sharing. He tried to break the connection, to look away for good, but something kept drawing him back. The silent dance of glances continued for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 20 minutes. Michael's bladder, however, had its own timeline. He needed to find a restroom. He stood up, stretching his stiff limbs, and glanced one last time towards Adrian. Adrian was still watching him, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk playing on his lips. Michael felt a blush creep up his neck, a mix of embarrassment and an unfamiliar thrill. He walked past several gates, the hubbub of the airport fading slightly as he neared the men's room. The sign, a bland blue rectangle with a universal symbol, seemed to promise a moment of quiet relief. Pushing open the door, Michael was met by the stark reality of airport sanitation. The air was cool, smelling faintly of disinfectant, and the sound of flushing toilets echoed in the tiled space. Above everything, a row of long, unforgiving fluorescent lights hummed with a low, buzzing energy. These lights cast a harsh, cold glow on every surface. The white tiles of the walls and floor gleamed with an almost sterile intensity. Michael could see every speck of dust, every hairline crack in the grout. His own reflection in the mirror above the sinks looked pale and tired, the harsh light highlighting the dark circles under his eyes. There was no warmth here, no soft shadows to hide in. Everything was exposed, stark, and utterly devoid of comfort. It was the kind of lighting that made you feel utterly visible, even when you were alone. He chose an empty stall, the metal door a dull gray under the relentless glare. The coldness of the room seemed to seep into his bones, a stark contrast to the strange warmth that had bloomed in his chest moments before. He was grateful for the brief solitude, a chance to clear his head from the intoxicating pull of Adrian's gaze. As he locked the stall door, he heard the main door to the men's room swing open and then softly click shut. Michael paused, his breath held. Was it just another traveler, or was it Adrian? The soft click of the men's room door closing echoed in the quiet, sterile space. Michael's heart gave a sudden lurch. He tried to tell himself it was just someone else, a normal traveler needing the facilities. But a powerful intuition, a gut feeling, told him otherwise. He finished quickly, the sound of his own breathing loud in his ears. He pushed the handle to unlock the stall door, his hand trembling slightly. As the door swung open, Michael's eyes immediately landed on him. Adrian. He stood just outside the stall, leaning casually against the cold, tiled wall, a faint, knowing smile playing on his lips. The harsh fluorescent light above made his eyes seem even darker, more intense. Michael froze, a sudden rush of heat flooding his face. He hadn't dared to hope or perhaps to fear that Adrian would actually follow him. The air in the bathroom, already cool, seemed to drop a few more degrees. Michael could hear the distant rumble of planes outside, but inside, the silence between them was thick and heavy. Adrian pushed off the wall, taking a slow step forward, then another. Michael found himself backing up into the stall, instinctively retreating from the approaching figure. The small space felt even smaller now, trapping him. Adrian didn't say a word. His eyes, however, spoke volumes. They held that same mix of curiosity and intense focus that Michael had seen across the terminal, but now, up close, it was overwhelming. Michael's breath hitched in his throat. He felt like a deer caught in headlights, unable to move, unable to look away. He could feel the cold metal of the stall door against his back. The low hum of the fluorescent light seemed to grow louder, filling the space with a buzzing tension. Then, with a soft click, Adrian reached out and locked the stall door from the inside. The click of the lock echoed in the small stall, a sound that sealed Michael's fate, at least for this moment. A jolt of pure adrenaline shot through him, sharp and sudden, making his entire body tense. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the sudden silence. Adrian was inside, the door locked, and Michael was trapped. Adrian moved quickly then, closing the small distance between them. He didn't speak, his gaze still fixed on Michael's, a silent demand in his eyes. Michael felt himself pressed back against the cold, metal wall of the stall. The chill seeped through his thin shirt, a stark contrast to the burning heat that flared through his veins. Adrian's body was close, warm and solid, a powerful presence that filled every inch of the cramped space. One of Adrian's hands came up, palm flat against the wall beside Michael's head, effectively caging him. The other hand rested lightly on Michael's chest, right over his pounding heart. Michael could feel the slight pressure, the warmth of Adrian's skin through his shirt. He was acutely aware of every detail. The scent of Adrian's cologne, faint and spicy, the subtle rise and fall of his chest, the way his dark eyes held Michael's captive. This was it. The culmination of all those stolen glances, all that unspoken tension. Michael's mind raced, a jumble of fear and excitement. He was caught, truly caught, and the thought sent another surge of adrenaline through him. He should be scared, he knew. He should be trying to push Adrian away, demanding to be let out. But he wasn't. Instead, a strange, raw thrill began to bubble up inside him, hot and intoxicating. This public secrecy, this forbidden closeness, was electrifying. He could feel the cool metal of the wall on his back, the hard presence of Adrian in front of him, and the buzzing fluorescent lights above them, casting their stark, unforgiving glow on their hidden encounter. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed, a low, constant hum that seemed to amplify the silence between them. Their unforgiving glow stripped away any softness, highlighting every sharp angle, every tense line of their bodies. Michael could see the tiny beads of sweat on Adrian's forehead, the slight tremor in his own hands where they rested against the cold wall. The light made everything feel stark, real, and inescapable. Long, distorted shadows stretched from their figures, dancing on the sterile white tiles of the stall. Adrian's shadow, tall and imposing, merged with Michael, creating a single dark shape that seemed to press in on them even further. The shadows twisted with every slight shift in their breathing, a silent mirror to the coiled tension that filled the small space. It was a tension that crackled in the air, thick and almost visible. The cold, hard light seemed to bore into Michael, exposing his every thought, every racing heartbeat. It highlighted the flush on his cheeks, the wide, disbelieving look in his eyes. There was no hiding here, no corner dark enough to offer a moment of reprieve from Adrian's intense gaze. Every detail of Adrian's face was brought into sharp focus. The slight stubble on his jaw, the precise curve of his lips, the depth of his dark eyes that held Michael completely captive. This harsh illumination, usually so unwelcome, now added a strange, almost cinematic drama to their encounter. It turned their secret moment into something bold and stark, a forbidden scene playing out under the brightest, most public of lights. The buzzing sound became a soundtrack, a high-pitched whine that underscored the thrill and the danger of being so close, so utterly exposed, yet completely hidden in plain sight. This was not a soft, romantic encounter. It was raw, immediate, and electrified by the glaring truth of their presence. In the glaring light, with Adrian so close, Michael could feel the silent understanding pass between them. It wasn't spoken, not a single word was needed. It was in the way Adrian's eyes held his, in the steady pressure of his hand on Michael's chest, in the electric current that seemed to hum between their bodies. This was no misunderstanding, no accident. They both knew exactly why they were here, locked away in this small, sterile box. A thrilling secret, raw and dangerous, settled in the air around them. Outside, the airport buzzed with thousands of people, none of whom knew what was unfolding inside this nondescript bathroom stall. That knowledge, the sheer audacity of it, sent another wave of adrenaline through Michael. It was a shared moment of rebellion, a defiance of the mundane, public space they inhabited. This was their own little island of intensity in an ocean of indifference. Michael found himself searching Adrian's eyes for answers, for confirmation, for anything. What he found there was a reflection of his own swirling emotions, a spark of daring, a hint of desire, and an undeniable sense of shared excitement. There was no judgment, only a deep, knowing acceptance of the situation they had created together. It was a silent pact, formed without words, sealed by proximity and intense gazes. The thrill of it was almost unbearable. The danger wasn't just Adrian's closeness or the possibility of being discovered. It was the danger of giving in to something so powerful, so unexpected. Michael felt a delicious shiver run down his spine, a mix of fear and sheer exhilaration. This public secrecy, this hidden moment of connection, was far more potent than any grand gesture. It was intimate precisely because it was so utterly out of place, so entirely unexpected. In this brightly lit, sterile cage, they were forging a bond that no one else would ever know. The silent pact hung heavy in the air, thick with unspoken desires and the thrum of shared secrecy. Then Adrian moved. He leaned in closer, his head dipping towards Michael's ear. Michael held his breath, every nerve ending tingling with anticipation. Adrian's warm breath ghosted against his skin, a stark contrast to the cool metal at his back. A low, urgent sound, barely a whisper, left Adrian's lips. It wasn't a clear sentence, not a question or a command, but a guttural murmur, a sound that spoke of raw instinct and unspoken longing. Michael couldn't quite make out the words, if they were even words, but the meaning was crystal clear. It was a sound that bypassed his ears and went straight to his core, sending a powerful shiver racing down his spine. The sensation was electric, both startling and deeply arousing. The sound resonated through Michael, vibrating through his bones. It was primal, a sound that spoke of hidden depths and forbidden desires. His eyes fluttered shut for a brief moment, overwhelmed by the sudden rush of sensation. He could feel the soft brush of Adrian's hair against his temple, the subtle shift of Adrian's weight as he lined in. The world outside the stall, the airport, the thousands of people, all faded away, leaving only this confined space, this shared breath, this urgent whisper. The whisper was a match striking dry kindling, igniting something deep within Michael that he hadn't known was there. It was a confirmation, a validation of the thrilling tension that had been building between them all this time. It was a promise, a challenge, and an invitation all rolled into one soft, dangerous sound. Michael's heart pounded even harder, a frantic rhythm against Adrian's hand still resting on his chest. He was utterly captivated, lost in the raw intensity of the moment. Michael's heart hammered a wild rhythm against his ribs, a frantic drum solo that filled his ears. The low, urgent sound Adrian had whispered, combined with his close presence, had ignited a spark that was now a roaring fire. He realized with a sudden, startling clarity the dangerous excitement of their encounter. This wasn't just a fleeting glance or a moment of shared attraction. This was something far more potent, far more thrilling. The thrill of being caught, of being cornered in this public yet private space, was overwhelming. It wasn't the fear of punishment or judgment, but the exquisite tension of almost being discovered. Every rustle outside the stall, every distant flush of a toilet, sent a jolt through him. They were playing a risky game, and Michael found himself utterly captivated by the stakes. His mind raced, not with panic, but with a vivid awareness of every sensation, every beat of his heart. He could feel the cold, sterile wall against his back, the warmth of Adrian's body pressing into him, the humid air of Adrian's breath on his neck. The harsh fluorescent lights, which had seemed so clinical just moments before, now felt like spotlights on their secret stage. They illuminated the forbidden nature of their interaction, making it feel bolder, more defiant. A giddy, almost reckless feeling bubbled up inside Michael. He was usually so careful, so measured. But here, in this small, locked space, with Adrian's intense gaze holding him captive, all his usual reservations had melted away. This was raw, immediate, and utterly exhilarating. The danger was palpable, a delicious current running through his veins, making him feel more alive than he had in years. He wanted to push Adrian away, to break free, but at the same time, he desperately wanted to lean into it, to fully embrace this thrilling, dangerous moment. The thought of what could happen next, and the sheer audacity of it, made his breath catch in his throat. Just as the dangerous excitement reached its peak, a new sound cut through the buzzing hum of the fluorescent lights. Footsteps. Distinct, heavy footsteps approaching from the main part of the men's room. Michael's eyes flew open, wide with alarm, meeting Adrian's. In an instant, the thrilling tension shifted, becoming laced with a sharp edge of fear. They both froze like startled animals. Adrian's body stiffened against Michael's, his hand still resting on Michael's chest, but now with a sudden, involuntary clench. The shared breath they had been holding seemed to catch in their throats. The footsteps grew louder, closer, echoing ominously on the tiled floor. Each step was a hammer blow to Michael's already racing heart. He could hear the creak of the main bathroom door opening again, then the distinct sound of a zipper followed by a flush. Someone was using the urinal just outside their stall. The sheer ordinariness of the sounds made their hidden situation feel even more illicit, more perilous. The thrill of being caught intensified 100-fold, now a cold dread mixed with the hot excitement. Adrian's eyes, previously so intense and commanding, were now narrowed, focused, listening. He barely breathed. Michael mimicked him, trying to make himself as small and silent as possible, pressed hard against the cold wall. The sound of the person washing their hands at the sink, the splash of water, the whir of the hand dryer, every mundane noise was amplified, a constant threat to their fragile, forbidden moment. The air in the stall grew impossibly thick with unspoken warnings and the suffocating weight of potential discovery. This was the ultimate test of their public secrecy, a game of nerves played out under the harshest of lights. The hand dryer whirred to a stop, followed by the soft click of the main bathroom door. Then silence. Michael held his breath, straining to hear any lingering sounds. Nothing. The footsteps had receded, the immediate danger of discovery had passed. A slow, shaky breath escaped him, and he felt Adrian's body relax slightly against his own. The moment the threat vanished, the intensity between them returned, but it was different now, stronger, sharper. The adrenaline from the near miss had heightened everything, making their forbidden closeness even more potent. The shared scare had forged a new, unspoken bond, a deeper layer to their secret. They had faced a common enemy, discovery, and emerged, for now, victorious. Adrian's eyes, which had been narrowed with caution, now softened, though the intensity remained. He looked at Michael with a gaze that spoke volumes, a silent acknowledgement of the danger they had just navigated together. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched Adrian's lips, a private triumph shared only between them. Michael felt a tremor run through him, a mix of relief and renewed excitement. His heart, which had been pounding with fear, now pounded with a different kind of urgency. The close call had stripped away any lingering hesitation, any doubt. This was real, this was happening. The air in the stall, once thick with apprehension, now crackled with a renewed, almost overwhelming energy. The harsh fluorescent lights, instead of exposing their vulnerability, now seemed to illuminate their defiance, their shared audacity. Michael felt a surge of raw, untamed desire, a fierce craving for whatever Adrian was offering. The stakes had been raised, and the game had become infinitely more thrilling. The air, still charged from the near discovery, now pulsed with a different kind of energy. Adrian's gaze, previously sharp with caution, softened, yet held an unwavering intensity that promised more than just a fleeting moment. Slowly, deliberately, Adrian leaned in. Michael's breath hitched, every muscle in his body taut with anticipation. He could feel the warmth radiating from Adrian's body, the subtle scent of his cologne filling the small space. Adrian's face was now inches from Michael's, close enough for Michael to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, the almost imperceptible tremor in his jaw. There was a silent promise in those eyes, a deep, unspoken vow that transcended words. It was a promise of untold secrets, of desires barely contained, of a connection that felt both dangerous and inevitable. Michael felt himself falling, not in fear, but in a dizzying surrender to the moment. His lips parted slightly, an unconscious invitation. Adrian's eyes dropped to Michael's mouth for a brief, electric second, and Michael's heart hammered against his ribs like a frantic bird. He was utterly breathless, caught in a spell woven by Adrian's proximity and the unspoken message in his gaze. Every instinct screamed for more, for the promise to be fulfilled, for the tension to break in a wave of sensation. The fluorescent lights, usually so harsh, now seemed to frame this intimate tableau, highlighting the raw vulnerability and potent desire between them. Michael wanted to reach out, to touch Adrian, to pull him closer, but he remained frozen, held captive by the sheer power of Adrian's presence. He was a moth drawn to a flame, knowing the danger, yet utterly unable to resist. This was more than just a passing encounter. It was an awakening, leaving Michael yearning, aching for whatever came next. He wanted more, with an intensity that surprised and thrilled him. Just when Michael thought he might burst from the sheer intensity, Adrian pulled back. It was a slow, deliberate movement, like the receding tide, leaving a sense of emptiness in its wake. Michael watched, almost mesmerized, as Adrian straightened up, creating a small space between them again. The silent promise in Adrian's eyes lingered, a potent aftertaste of their encounter. Adrian's hand, which had been resting on Michael's chest, moved. It slid down, a feather-light touch that sent a fresh wave of shivers through Michael. The touch paused briefly on Michael's forearm, a gentle, lingering pressure that was both a farewell and a confirmation. It was a physical echo of the unspoken words, a final, intimate connection before the inevitable separation. Michael wanted to grab it, to hold on to it, but he remained still, unable to break the spell. With one last, deep look into Michael's eyes, Adrian turned. He reached for the lock on the stall door, his movements fluid and unhurried. The click of the lock echoing in the small space this time felt different, a release rather than a trap. Adrian pushed the door open and stepped out of the stall, leaving Michael standing alone in the glaring fluorescent light. Michael heard Adrian's footsteps recede, moving away from the stall, then the soft whoosh of the main bathroom door opening and closing. Adrian was gone. The abrupt departure left Michael feeling hollowed out, as if a vital part of him had just walked away. The air in the stall, once thick with their combined presence, now felt thin and cold. He was alone again, but utterly changed. The lingering warmth on his arm, the phantom touch, was the only proof that the intense, thrilling encounter had actually happened. The stall door clicked shut, the sound oddly final. Michael remained pressed against the cold metal, his heart still thundering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The fluorescent lights overhead continued their relentless hum, casting their stark, unforgiving glow on the now empty space. Adrian was gone, but his presence lingered, a potent ghost in the small, sterile room. Michael's mind raced, replaying every detail of the last few minutes. Adrian's intense gaze, the low whisper, the thrilling touch, the shared fear of discovery, the lingering promise in his eyes. It was a dizzying whirlwind of sensations and emotions, unlike anything Michael had ever experienced. He was alone, yet the encounter felt more vivid, more real than anything else in the airport. The lingering thrill was almost unbearable. It buzzed beneath his skin, a potent mix of excitement, desire, and a strange, exhilarating sense of danger. He could still feel the phantom warmth of Adrian's hand on his arm, a physical reminder of their secret connection. The adrenaline, which had spiked and dipped, now settled into a low, persistent hum, keeping him on edge, electrified. He stood there for what felt like an eternity, though it was probably only a minute or two. The mundane reality of the airport, the distant announcements, the muffled sounds of people outside, slowly began to filter back into his awareness. But they seemed far away, softened by the cocoon of his own internal storm. He was still in the same airport bathroom, under the same harsh lights, but everything felt profoundly different. He had been touched, not just physically, but deep within his core. The dullness of his layover, the weariness of his journey, had been shattered by an unexpected, thrilling encounter. He finally pushed himself away from the wall, his legs a little shaky, his mind still buzzing. Michael finally pushed the stall door open, stepping out into the main bathroom area. The harsh fluorescent lights still hummed, but now they seemed to illuminate a new path for him. He splashed cold water on his face, trying to cool the lingering flush on his cheeks, then looked in the mirror. He saw the same face, but the eyes held a new depth, a spark of something untamed that hadn't been there before. He was no longer just a tired traveler. He was a man who had just shared a thrilling, dangerous secret. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Michael walked out of the men's room. The noise and chaos of the terminal hit him like a wave, but it couldn't drown out the echoes of what had just transpired. His gaze swept across the crowded space, searching. He looked for Adrian near the gate where they had first seen each other, then towards the food court, then the shops. Every face was a stranger, every figure a blur in the endless stream of travelers. Adrian was nowhere to be found. A pang of disappointment, sharp and unexpected, pierced through the lingering thrill. Was that it? A fleeting, intense moment, never to be repeated. He hadn't even learned Adrian's last name or where he was headed. Yet even as disappointment settled, a strange sense of contentment bloomed. The encounter, however brief and unresolved, had left an indelible mark. Michael knew he was a changed man. The weariness of his journey had been replaced by a vibrant energy, a sense of having truly lived, if only for a few minutes, on the edge of something wild and exciting. He continued his walk through the terminal, no longer just passing time, but carrying a secret that made the mundane world around him feel dull in comparison. He was different now, and he knew it. The airport, once a place of transit, had become a stage for a secret drama that would forever be etched in his memory.